This is Already Brute with another run of Noobs are coming. The last time we played with the Cyclops, who only gets one weapon, and that weapon of choice was one big ball to protect ourselves, so it was a struggle to get to the end. Today I'd like a more chilled, relaxed game, so I'm going to play Arachna, who starts with 8 weapon slots, and there's a number of bosses, a number of builds I still want to try out. But Arachna will also unlock a boss at the end of the run, so we can choose spider minions or the shovel. I'm going to choose the shovel because it's melee, and we haven't done too many melee builds. But as a melee weapon, I think the shovel is pretty terrible. Its scaling and base damage are very low, and its only benefit, which is a pretty strong benefit, is that it gives you a 30% chance of getting an extra soul on attack, which is pretty strong early on, but we're going to transition away from it as soon as we can. The strength is going to be the primary stat that we go after, but for a chill experience, let's just get the max HP for now. I'm going to avoid the axes, the hammers, and the heavy trade, because that's very similar to the golden hammer that we've already done, but I would like to try the fist and the martial arts, as well as the vampire daggers with the rogue trade and even the vampire trade. Those both sound very interesting. The light sword I will take, but I don't think it's a very good weapon for this particular build, because it splits its damage between strength and arcane, and it's going to be very hard to scale for us. It looks very similar to one of the weapons in Spaceballs.
And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine!
So I'm not quite sure how they got the rights to that. But a weapon that sounds pretty awesome that we've unlocked recently is the Poison Dagger, which has a poison damage over time effect, but they both scale off of dexterity, so that's definitely going to be for a different build. The traits we have access to is melee making melee stronger, rogue giving us dodge, attraction, and strength, and vampirism giving us lifesteal. Martial arts gives us speed, crit, and strength at the end, plus 5. That's very strong. Let's just take the Soul Harvest, and out of all those traits, all of those weapons so far, I think I like the fist the best. Martial arts is a very strong trait. 10% speed, 7% crit, and plus 5 strength. The rogue only gives plus 2 strength by comparison, and the shovel is only melee. I also think it would be hilarious to have a spider with 8 legs, using its fist to beat down the enemies. And melee is pretty strong, especially when you can get so many weapons early on to fill all your attack slots. There's also another spider boss in the game that you start with 12 weapon slots, but each time you pick up a weapon, you lose 5% damage. So if you go to 10, you're already at takeaway 100, and that affects everything in the game. The poison, the lightning, your turrets, so I'm not quite sure how to play that guy. So we got speed or range, they're kind of the same thing. So let's just get the range so we don't have to walk as far. We would like to get some strength and some more weapons. We still need 3 more, and even more to replace the ones that we already have, like the shovel. The Spring Punch. 8 damage, 70% scaling, 7 damage. Compared to the fist, it's got a higher base damage but lower scaling. It's got a bigger range and no crit, but it gains 10% damage. It also gives a dodge as well. We'll have to keep an eye on how it changes from green to blue to purple. So let's lock down the strength damage and the percentage, and move on. We spent most of our cash in the rerolls. I do like the range of the Spring Fist though. It's very quick back and forth, and it keeps us from investing in speed. But now we have 2 different fist weapons that we can scale into, and I'm probably going to still keep the Rogue Dagger and get the Rogue Trade as well, because the free Vampirism is very nice. It gives you a free 10% lifesteal, which is just a 10% chance per attack to heal 1 HP. But with the amount of projectiles, the amount of enemies, you need some way to heal in the game, or you're gonna have a bad time. Let's get the plus 3 strength, and the strength from the shop as well. And we got another Spring Punch for our 7th weapon, which actually is the same as the fist now, although the fist should start scaling higher and higher the more strength we get. And we're pretty poor, but we can definitely afford the strength. We're now at 10 strength from the martial arts buff. And our Rogue Dagger, which has terrible scaling of 50%, 13 damage, which is what our fists were at before we got 6 more strength. But our fist is at 19, and the Spirit Punch is at 18, so they're still relatively close. And usually I would pick the fist because it has built-in crit, It's got a better scaling, but I like the Spring Punch quite a bit more. Visually, it looks a lot cooler, and it also has the 10% built-in damage from its traits as well. So even if its damage overall is slightly less, I think it's only going to trail behind slightly, unless we get around 40 or 50 strength. Let's definitely get the lifesteal, and I'm always a sucker for XP, for ranged as well this time. I like the level up range, but I don't want to pay money for it in the shop. But we got another fist, get the 2 HP, and the Frost Axe actually scales off of elemental and strength. That's pretty interesting. Let's sell the light sword, get the Spring Punch, and the 6% damage as well. So one last reroll, and these are all pretty bad, so let's go on. It's interesting to note that the Spring Punch doesn't actually list a cooldown, which actually makes sense if it's on a spring, kind of like a crossbow that has a very fixed duration of use. But that also means that the cooldown, good or bad, isn't going to affect us, at least hopefully. So that means we can focus on other stats. And the Black Fist is about a cooldown of 1 second, but the Spring Fist does feel and look faster than that. And that was something that drew me to it as well. Not just the visual, but the speed of the fist plummeting towards the enemy's face. We also have 8 legs, so we get 8 weapons, but we still need to walk around. So having a gadget that launches out an automatic attack makes a bit more sense. We've had some pretty bad level up choices so far, so let's get the XP and hopefully we can fix that down the road. But let's get the strength and damage percentage, get the cheaper items, and we could double down on the shovel, but that would be another life. We found another vampire dagger, so I think it's time to get rid of our actual shovel, which the shovel actually did more damage. It was at 19, while the vampire's only at 15. But it does have a built-in 17% crit, which when a crit is double damage, it's basically a 1-for-1. So it's just going to do a 17% damage on average. And for my time of playing Diablo 3, with some friends who were much more obsessed with it than I was much bigger into Diablo 2, you tend to want to get a crit to crit damage ratio of about the same. So 300% crit damage to get around 30% crit to get the most consistent damage gain. But in this game the crit damage is fixed and not changeable, at least yet. And there's not a ton of items, besides one blue, that really gives you a bunch of crit anyways. But the blue gives you 6%. And at some point, because the crit damage is fixed, it's better just to get flat damage, or percentage increased damage, but that'll have a much bigger effect. Once again, these are pretty bad, but let's just grab the HP, save our cash. We got Uneducated, which gives you a ton of free stats, plus 3 strength. And let's actually buy the range this time. We've passed it a number of times. Let's get the regen, and combine the fists together, so we can fit in the Spring Punch. Because I'm still not quite sure which one I'm going to go yet later on. And let's get the HP as well. And we're out of cash. But the fist went from 26 to 36 damage. The base damage went from 6 to 12, and the scaling increased by 10%. It's also got built-in lifesteal that I wasn't aware of. There should almost be a Fist of the North Star, or a Dragon Fist, something that does burning damage, or explosive damage. Strength also needs its equivalent of the poison for probably a bleed weapon, but I'm not really sure how many fist weapons are really needed in the game. The fist weapon is overloaded with stats, and I kind of feel like it's a lemon, a bait and switch, because the Spring Fist just feels better. And it actually has more DPS round from round, but that's also because it has higher range, so it gets the hit in first, and takes away the damage that the fist could do. So it's really hard to compare the two. But if they put even more stats on the fist, I might give it another gander. This is our level 10, and usually I would take the blue cooldown, but I definitely prefer the strength, which helps all of our weapons, and not just half of them. So plus 6 HP, plus 1 strength, and let's make the items cheaper as well. But we're constantly out of cash. Wave 9 is actually one of the best rounds to make cash, because it's got a really heavy spawn rate, and all the enemies are melee, so they run right towards you. Wave 3, Wave 6, Wave 9, and then of course all the waves before the boss as well. They're all decent for making cash. This is also the make or break wave, where you'll end up making a ton of cash, or you'll end the run. Because I've lost the game on this wave many times. Because a lot of the enemies do 9 to 12 damage, especially the charging Leroy Jenkins. But this wave is pretty easy. This boss is pretty easy just because it gives you so much extra weapon slots. So you just got built-in damage from the start. And that's why I chose to play him. Because I wanted a chill, relaxing run. And I wanted to punch people in the face. So we get to accomplish both things. And our damage is pretty good and consistent. So we made quite a bit of souls here. Let's get the extra chest, the extra soul flasks, and the dodge chance which gives dodge damage. 2 more HP, although the soul harvest probably would have been better. And plus 16 range, that sounds good. The blue light sword scales 70-70 instead of 50-50. We finally found a third vamp dagger, so let's sell our fist, because I'm pretty sure we're going to go spring fist. And let's get the vamp dagger. Now we have a 10% chance to attract the soul. And I'm not sure the fourth dagger is really going to help us too much. It's only going to give us plus 2 strength, so we either get 5 springs or 4 daggers. Let's get the plus 6 HP, and let's actually save our cash, keep on rolling, because we need weapons just like these. The vampire dagger gains 10% growth, but the spring punch gains 15% growth. It only gains around 3 base damage though, but the growth is the much more important stat. So even though the fist was higher, the spring punch is eventually going to be higher, because the fist only gained 10% per turn. So that's a big shift in dynamic, because the spring is either going to overtake or sort of even out with the fist. Let's get the extra souls for extra enemy health, and the punching dummy actually has the spring fist built into it. That was the first time I saw that attack, but it almost feels like the fist is going even faster. But I think that's just because we have the range to reach all the enemies as quickly as it goes on cooldown. And that cooldown is probably 0.6, 0.75, because it still felt faster than the fist. I also wish that the rogue would give you a crit chance to all weapons, or something along the lines of that. The absorption is very nice, and I like that trait a lot. The weaker strength sort of makes sense. And the dodge, sure. But rogues are all about, well, assassins are all about critting and hitting really hard. But I always have the bad habit of turning my sneaking rogue into a one-hit assassin machine. So I guess that one's on me a bit. But this is another great wave for souls, and we're going to easily break 400 here. Maybe even 450. So let's get the ores, the bigger pickup, and the free reroll as well. And we got a bunch of whites. Just perfect. But we use our free roll to get 4 strength, nice. And now with 25 strength, our white dagger's only doing 24, while the green is doing 35. The spring punch is 34 and 44. So we gain quite a bit of damage just from the strength alone. Make the items cheaper for I think the 3rd time. 6% more damage, and even more ore. It's a limited item of 2, so now it's gone forever. Let's get the cheaper rerolls, and the speed. I'm surprised we still have a bunch of white and green weapons as well. We've had pretty bad luck with finding the weapons, but we also have access to all of the weapons. So oftentimes when we play a boss, they'll only have access to minions, or traps, or plants, and it makes it much easier to find things. So now we got all green vampire daggers at least, although they are the worst scaling ones, so I'd much prefer actually getting these spring fists. But let's move on here. And now we should be getting some extra cash from all the ores that we have. We've got the max of 2, so we should get 2 spawns every around 60 seconds. And the interesting thing too is they're actually affected by your cooldown. So you could potentially be making more and more cash based on the cooldown, and then buying more cooldown, and just making a perpetual little circle there. But at some point, the rerolls in the game become insane, and it doesn't really matter how much cash you have. That's why the endless is interesting. But honestly, you end up buying like 1 or 2 things in the shop, rerolling a couple times, and you just keep going on and on until you die. And they outscale you. Because I had one glitch where you could reroll as much as you wanted, but the increase in price after that first free reroll kept increasing and it wouldn't go away round from round. So the rerolls got up to around 500 souls after the first free one, and it destroyed the run. So let's get the +1 strength. These are all pretty bad again. +2 strength isn't bad. It's nice because the white strength is 2, while the dex white is only 1. We finally found another spring punch. So we're slowly getting them all green. We have one more white. Let's get the +1 strength. And we actually found a green all on our own. And now it's at 100% scaling, gain of 15%, and the base actually gained 5, up from 3 from the previous one. So it just keeps getting better and better, which is kind of insane, because the fist kind of seemed linear, whereas the spring fist, it also feels linear, but they give you a few free +1 mysteries every so often, just to keep you coming back. And I love a good mystery. 12 is also a great wave for cash. Most waves that have melee are great. The ones that have the archers, the sorks, things that just kind of stand there and shoot, or especially the archers, who don't even really care that you exist. They'll stand in the corner and stoop shooting their arrows, and their arrows will bounce around the entire map, so more than likely they will eventually hit you. But the sorks at least know you exist, you know, give you that little confidence boost that you're a threat, because they're constantly gunning for you. But most of those aren't really a threat, especially on a build like this. There's not a lot of clutter on the screen, but when you increase size, increase amount, it becomes very hard to dodge, and they could make a transparency mod for it or something, but I don't feel like something that should be necessary in this type of game. So we got the final sale item, and let's grab the +5 strength, pushing us up to 34, 3% lifesteal, 3 more HP, 6 more HP, and 6% damage. So now we're at 44, and we gained about 8 HP just in this shop. But none of these. We found the cheater, but let's lock down the strength. And I don't think there's any uniques that we want. The green road daggers at 48, while the spring punch is at 61, and the blue spring is at 77. So we gain the most damage by leveling up our weapons. We just have to be lucky enough to find them. And I'm really glad that we were able to get the martial trait, as well as the rogue trait maxed out. There is an item later on that is a unique, that gives you +1 in all your different traits, but we haven't unlocked that one yet. And it would probably be the most useful for the spider that has 12 arms, because at least you could max out all the different traits, and try to counterbalance the take away 120% damage. But even plus strength plus dex is still not going to do anything, because all of that damage would be times 0, and in this case, times below 0. For those that are curious, the ranking has changed. The archer has fallen out of favor, and the magical mushroom man has taken the first spot in the most hated enemy, the one who has ended the most runs. These are pretty bad. A purple dodge, that's pretty good. There's not really a boss that benefits or scales dodge, like I would want in the game so far. It's definitely one of the hardest stats to get up. We got a blue vampire. Our green currently does 50, and the blue does 62. It's 64 when all the traits are active again. So let's get the 3 HP. Cooldown doesn't really affect us too much. And let's move on. We didn't make a ton of cash last time. We are getting a constant stream. Whoa, we took a lot of 7s there from that toad. Maybe that's how he does so much damage. He doesn't do one hit that's like 30 or 26. He just hits you with all of the crosses at the same time. And that's why we got such a big hit the very first time we saw him. That would make the most sense. And the game does have iframes, but there's also little glitches I found while playing the game. And the toad would definitely make the most sense to have that, because he has 4 different arrows. And if you're perfectly in the middle, somehow they end up all in your face. And I'm a lot of things, but I'm not okay with that. We're still making decent cash. I really like the flying swordsman and his spinning swords. And they also do a lot less damage than you would think. Let's take the speed. And the green strength is a free gimme. 3 more HP. And the attracting was always nice. It's also very cheap, it's always ever like 20. 2 more HP and 6% damage. And these are all terrible. And we got another attractor as well. So we have a 40% chance to attract, plus the 10% from the dagger itself, the rogue dagger. So that's pretty cool actually. I really like this character because he does so much free damage. This was just a very chill run. And we could buy health, buy lifesteal, buy HP regen, and just make it so we don't have to worry so much. We also took out 3 different bosses in around 20 seconds, and we only have 4 blue items. We don't even have any purples. The best thing we have going for us is the 38 strength we've acquired so far. And for getting 30 strength, we unlock the Bigfoot, but at 60 you actually get an item as well. But I'm not sure we're going to be able to get that in this run. As with most items and challenges, once you've unlocked the item, completing the challenge is actually much easier. I'm also not sure I'm ever going to buy that item, if we unlock it, because it takes away 10% XP, and I am a fiend for XP. Armored Punched is also one of the best strength items that we could get. And Contract Pen gave you plus 4 minion damage, that's very strong. Let's just get the plus 2 strength. And the attractor, so now we have a 50% attraction chance, 3% vampirism, and we got another Spring Punch. I'm going to be pretty shocked if we can't actually make it purple this run. We could always combine and throw away our 2 blues, but that's not quite the same way. Then we just have a purple and a bunch of whites. But I mean a legit purple. Not a cop-out that we find in the shop, but the fact that all of our weapons will be blue, and it's just sort of a natural progression sort of thing. Because we've been pretty liking on the weapons, but we've also been having to find 2 more than usual. And we haven't actually found any attack slots either, because we only have 8 weapons, but we can go up to 16. But I'm only aware of like 3 items in the shop that will give you an extra attack slot. This enemy as well is added to the list below the archer and above the toad, because he is very fast and he does a lot of damage. Usually around like 14 or so. But often when he hits you, you get chunked, and then he hits you again and again, and he might just take you out during this wave. But he's really only threatening to characters who don't have the damage to push him off, or who are very slow. And we did it, we got a purple weapon. And it was completely skill based. So it has a 20 base and a 120% scaling. The blue, on the other hand, is a 15 base, so it only increased by 5 like it had just done. I was kind of hoping it would go to 7 though. Keep the trend of killing higher and higher each upgrade. But we went from no purples to 3 purples, with the Spring Punch doing 118 damage. Let's lock down the HP, which is one of the best bangs for your buck, because a lot of the cheap HP are limited items, or they have some really bad negatives to them. But purples are spendy. This wave is also pretty hard, because the base enemy are the rogues, which do around 7 damage. Early on it doesn't matter as much, because there's lots of space to run around, but as the board fills up, the enemies don't despawn, you can easily get surrounded, and any ways you find out can be blocked by the Magic Mushroom Man, which I wouldn't hate the Mushroom Man so much if his attack actually made sense. It's just completely RNG. Sometimes it'll head straight for you and hit you no matter what. That guy had just spawned and he hit me. Or other times it'll go towards a corner or completely away from you. And often the bounce will get you, which is the most annoying part. But the best approach is to just stay away until they've cast. So let's get the plus 2 strength, and the HP that we locked down. Let's get the double face. I like the item because you can really feel the speed change. And none of these. We're already almost out of cash. Got another armored punch though. So now we have 8% damage reduction. The daggers are now at 79 damage. with the punch being 126, with only 6% crit, but the Rogue Dagger has 17% built right in. So he's got 23%, and every time the Rogue Dagger does actually crit, he'll be doing more damage than our fist. And all of our fists are actually purple, but the daggers are 2 blue and 2 green. So the daggers could actually be better, but they're also getting a bunch of free stats from the martial trait, which gives you crit, speed, and 5 strength. So it wouldn't be nearly as strong without those. So I like our build quite a bit. We had a lot of front load damage, so we were strong early on, during wave 1, 2, 3, so that we can actually amass income and start scaling from there. That's one reason why I have so much HP regen and lifesteal, so we haven't really been in danger at all this run. But I feel like the game needs some sort of catch-up mechanic, because when you are behind, you just sort of spiral. So I definitely want strength here. These are all purple for our level 20 upgrade. So I'm actually going to spend all of my souls here. But all of my souls are slowly disappearing. And wow, that was our last reroll. That is so sad. And we can actually buy some of these in the shop. That's surprising. But let's go on. We also have 37 dodge, which I think is the highest I've ever gone in this game. But we didn't get any unlocks for it. Similar to crit in another run, I got it to around 60%. And we didn't get any unlock for that either. The game is still early access, they're adding items and bosses, and a lot of the current bosses give you a reward for completing a game, getting a win, but they don't actually have the second achievement for getting a win on difficulty 5. So there's still a ton of items they're going to add to the game. There's lots and lots of bosses in the game, and I've got an idea for a plants build, a bombs build, and a mount build around arrows, a rotation build, and a pets build that involves worms. So I'm definitely excited to keep playing this game. But it's always nice to have a chill character, just to make it to the end. And we're gonna get around 750, 800 souls here. I should take the purple crit, but I'm gonna take the 4 strength. And even with all the strength we've found, we're only at 50 here. So we definitely have to go into endless, unless we get extremely lucky in the shop here to get that 60. And we actually found a blue dagger. The blue is at 83 damage, while the purple is at 110. It is slightly better than our blue punch, and the purple spring is at 134. So the spring is still slightly better, even if we take the crit into consideration. And the spring is definitely better if we somehow reach 100% crit all on our own. But let's get more HP. There's also items within the shop that give you 10% link damage, just like it is with the 10% bow, 10% spike, 10% fire. So that was another reason why I liked the spring punch over just the fist, because that item isn't limited, and if we were extremely lucky, the linked fist could have had insane damage. So we're fighting the big tank, and the bomberman as well. But the spring punch does have a knockback, which a few of these charging enemies do really bad against knockback. Took out the first boss in 10 seconds, and we have an apt 69 HP. Very nice. Ooh, we almost took out the second boss in another 10 seconds. I feel like he ran away from us though. Clearly he knew after he took out his friend that he had no chance. But to get the smallest morsel of victory, the 1-upmanship, before he got taken out, he made sure that we couldn't get our 10-second clock. This guy, right? I think we all know a this guy in our life. There is just a horde of toads behind us, and I'm not sure our attack range is long enough to get most of them while they're still on the ground. So they're just going to follow us around till the end of the game. The spring punch was at 138 damage, while the vampire dagger was at 113, and we had 51 strength. We also unlocked the Worminator. Your attacks will trail behind you, and you're a bit faster. I'm not sure I'm in love with that. But we also got the Succubus. When you kill an enemy, When you kill an enemy, you have a 10% chance to charm. I do like charm. And we've also unlocked endless mode. I will give a shout out to the people I've seen liking the videos back to back. I definitely see you, and I appreciate the love. I think it's silly to ask for likes, but it is the best way to grow the channel, and it's the only way to fight the YouTube overlords. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.